6:52 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, the 18th edition of the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum gets underway tomorrow. It runs for 3 days. Will feature the Caribbean Youth IGF workshop in collaboration with small island developing states. The CIGF is a regional multi-stakeholder forum initiated by the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and the CARICOM Secretariat in 2005. Well, let's hear about what's going to be happening over the 3 days, because there are quite a lot of things taking place. The focus on the youth, the focus on region-wide issues, small island developing states. We have Nigel Casimir, who is the Deputy Secretary of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. We have Tariq Mohammed, a radio engineer. He's a consultant for the event. Both these gentlemen based in Trinidad and Tobago. And we also have with us, all the way across to the South Pacific, is Sherry Lagakali, who's a native of Fiji, but she's actually in another South Pacific location, which is Tonga, where it's coming up towards midnight on Tuesday. So we really appreciate her taking the time to be with us. She's a Senior Advisor, Pacific Cyber Policy and Communications Global Forum on Cyber Expertise. So we really appreciate Ms. Lagakali being with us as well. So let's start in the time that we have available. Mr. Casimir, tell us about the events that are taking place. I know for all who would like to get more information, you can go onto the website www.ctu.int. It's a virtual event. Who would you like to see attending this event, Mr. Casimir, to log on to it virtually?
Well, thank you very much, Fazil. It's an open event. Internet governance fora around the world are what we call multi-stakeholder fora, and we have stakeholders from all different groups coming together on equal footing to discuss things like policies, technical standards, norms, and related to the growth and operation of the internet. So governments, private sector, students, end users, just any man in the street user of the internet, technical persons, and so on. So all are invited, and all have equal opportunity to take part in the discussions.
And we'll get to some of the specifics in the tight time that we have available. Let me bring in Tariq Mohammed here as a radio engineer and someone who is a consultant for the event. And of course, there's a Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum happening tomorrow. So that would appear to be quite relevant to you, Mr. Mohammed, as well. What do you see as the benefit of this sort of interaction?
So this youth forum, this Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, is the first of its kind, right? So what we've done is we've engaged many youth across the Caribbean to co-develop, and they'll also be co-delivering this session tomorrow, this 3-hour session from 1 to 4 p.m. AST. The benefits of that is that we have marketed not only to professionals and persons that are already in the tech sector, but to those that have no idea what internet governance is. So as soon as we kick off the event tomorrow and we have the opening remarks from the CTU, we'll be diving straight into an intro to internet governance, so that anyone at all, whether you're youth, whether you're an adult, can come in, sit down, listen, and see what internet governance is about in this very brief presentation before we then delve into more technical topics.
Okay.
We also have a segment on careers in internet governance. So after we go into some of the topics, we'll be sort of closing or having half of the session looking at career paths and how you can get involved in the sector.
Sure.
So those are the real benefits we have.
So let me bring in Ms. Lagakali, who's patiently waiting for an opportunity to contribute at approaching midnight in Tonga in the South Pacific. Ms. Lagakali, it's a real privilege to have you with us, and thanks for taking the time at this odd hour for you in your part of the world. What do you see as the benefit of this exercise taking place?
Thank you very much for having me, and Maloelele from Tonga. One of the benefits that we see from this exercise is for small island developing states like the Pacific Island countries, we're similar in the things to the that are faced in the Caribbean. And so we want to exchange information. We want to learn from each other. We want to learn best practices. We want to see that, since our issues are the same, what can we learn from each other in terms of what are these issues, how we go about it, what can we do? Can there be an exchange of skills? Can there be an exchange, in cases where, we have fellowships where people from the Pacific can go over to the Caribbean, or can there be methods that have been, that have worked in the Caribbean that we could apply here in the Pacific, or something that's worked here in the Pacific that we could apply in the Caribbean. Online safety issues we're facing, data protection laws, changes in regulations. We're all going through these changes where, the internet is now available everywhere, is getting faster. It's a catch-up game for us in terms of issues, security, and laws. Are they up to date on time, or are we lagging behind? Is there something that we're missing? What are the gaps?
And Mr. Casimir, what would you like, when we hear the term governance or internet governance, as in this case, people tend to think, well, it's going to be a long technical discussion, lots of technical jargon, and what do you hope will come out of it as far as benefiting the people in our region, given all the many different challenges?
The purpose of this forum over the years has been capacity building and public awareness, as well as consensus building on policies related to it. So when we talk about internet governance, we're talking about not just technical matters, but day-to-day impacting things like there'll be topics, for example, on data protection, cybersecurity, issues of maybe intellectual property can come. And this is in addition to the technical things like, connectivity, digital transformation, and these sorts of things. One thing I'd like to point out that Sherry mentioned in terms of the Small Island Developing States, this is also the first ever Small Island Developing States Internet Governance Forum. So we've taken the opportunity to bring together Small Island Developing States from all over the world. Yes, we have the Pacific. We're also expecting minister from Mauritius, so like the Indian Ocean region as well, in addition to the Caribbean, of course. And so it's really a global forum that we put together, and I think it'll be quite an exciting program over the 3 days.
Final perspective from Mr. Mohammed as well, before we go to Ms. Lagakali for a final view as well. And Mr. Mohammed, the view is that this is for young people. Young people are locked into this, the internet, they spend all the time on TikTok, social media, videos and whatever else. But in real terms, when we talk about a governance forum like this one, from your point of view, what would you like to see come out of the 3 hours of dialogue?
What I want to see come out of these 3 hours of dialogue is a perspective or the opportunity for more youth to get involved in the sector. What we've noticed in the past is that there aren't many youth currently involved in the internet governance space. And the International Telecommunication Union, who is the ICT branch of the UN, says that of all the people in the world, 40% of them are people age of 25. So we need to have more inclusion of them in this discussion, in this multi-stakeholder perspective.
That's a very important point. And Ms. Lagakali, when we talk about small island developing states, I suppose the argument is, will there even be small island developing states in 10, 20, 30 years' time? Because, of course, when we follow the international news, we follow all that is going on in your part of the world with the threat of global warming, rising sea levels. The Pacific region is under major threat. How does that factor in when you're talking about internet governance and so on, when you're not even sure you'll be around in a generation's time?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of our speakers at the event is the Minister for ICT from Tuvalu, and Tuvalu has this initiative that they're looking at called the Digital Nation, and in this you get to hear more about it when the minister speaks. But it's using the technology, the internet available to us today to be able to protect our culture using blockchain and the data technology available through also using the .tv domain space. And I don't want to go into details. I'm hoping that to hear more about it, you will join us. Climate change, rising sea levels, natural disasters. These are things that we suffer as small island developing states. And if not a platform like this, where else can we have these discussions? And the more that we can have these discussions, the more attention that we can bring to our issues and be able to say, oh, let's exchange information. What is working here? Who's doing what? What can we learn from each other?
Very good point, and indeed, just after midnight in Tonga, we were just about ready to conclude our discussion, but let me leave it finally with Mr. Casimir. For anyone who would like to log in for the discussions that will be taking place, the Youth Forum tomorrow, the broader discussions on Thursday and Friday for this important governance dialogue, what do they have to do as a final word, Mr. Casimir?
Yeah, so we are online, so you do have to go online, go to our website, ctu.int. You'll see a nice big banner there for the event, CIGF, Youth IGF, and SIDS IGF. Click on that, and you will have a few tabs available to you, like agenda, registration, and so on. One of the tabs is remote participation. You click on that tab, remote participation, and the instructions for connection would be in there.
Okay, Mr. Casimir, Mr. Mohammed, and Ms. Lagakali, especially taking the time to join us just after midnight now in Tonga in the South Pacific. We really appreciate you all taking the time. Let's hope it's a beneficial dialogue that happens over the next 3 days with the discussion that's happening online, hosted by the Caribbean by the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and it is a Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. It's 3 minutes after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's go now to the news.